Look at almost any price tag anywhere in the world and you'll see the same thing. Not $5. $4.99, not $20. $19.99, not $1,000. $9.99. That single missing penny is everywhere. On grocery shelves, on gas station signs, on the app store, on the car lot, on the menu board at the drive-thru. It's so normal that you've stopped seeing it entirely. And that's exactly the point. Because here's the strange part. That penny cost the store almost nothing to give up. 1 cent out of $5 is a rounding error. And yet virtually every retailer on earth, competing fiercely against each other, has independently decided to give up that penny every single time. For over a century, nobody does that by accident. So what is that penny actually buying them? The answer is stranger than it tricks your brain. Although it does trick your brain, because the real story starts with something that has nothing to do with psychology at all. It starts with a saloon owner who couldn't stop his staff from robbing him. Let's go back to Dayton, Ohio in the 1870s. A man named James Ritty ran a popular saloon. Business was good, money was coming in all night, and yet somehow Ritty was barely making anything. The reason wasn't a mystery to him. His bartenders were stealing. Not dramatically, not all at once, just quietly, a coin here, a coin there. A customer hands over money, the bartender pockets it instead of putting it in the drawer, and no record of the sale ever exists. In a cash business with no tracking, this was almost impossible to stop. You can't audit what was never written down. Then, in 1878, Ritty took a trip to Europe by steamship, and down in the engine room, he saw a device that counted the rotations of the ship's propeller, a machine that automatically kept a running tally of something nobody was watching. Nobody had to remember to count. Nobody had to be trusted. The machine simply recorded, relentlessly, whether anyone was paying attention or not. And Ritty had an idea. What if you could do that for money? A machine that recorded every single sale, automatically, whether the employee wanted it recorded or not. He went home to Dayton and built it with his brother. The early versions were crude. One of the first was nicknamed the incorruptible cashier, which tells you everything about what it was actually for. It wasn't sold as a tool to serve customers faster. It was sold as a machine that could not be bribed, distracted, or talked into looking the other way. Eventually, the invention passed to a businessman named John Patterson, who founded the National Cash Register Company in 1884 and turned it into an empire. But the core pitch never changed. This device stops your staff from stealing from you. But here's where the pricing comes in. And this is the part that connects the register to that missing penny. A cash register only creates a record if the clerk actually opens it. And here's the flaw. If a customer buys something for exactly $5 and hands over a $5 bill, the clerk doesn't need to open the drawer at all. No change required. He can simply slip that bill into his pocket and no record is ever created. The machine is useless if the transaction never touches it. Now watch what happens if the item costs $4.99. The customer hands over $5. The clerk must give back a penny. To get that penny, he has to open the drawer. And to open the drawer, on those early machines, he has to ring up the sale, which prints it on a paper tape inside where the owner can count it later. That single cent, deliberately shaved off the round number, forces the transaction into the record. The odd price wasn't there to seduce the customer. It was there to police the employee. It's a beautiful piece of design when you think about it. The owner can't watch every sale. So instead of trying to catch thieves, he changes the price by 1 penny and makes the machine catch them for him. The customer, who has no idea any of this is happening, becomes the enforcement mechanism. Because the customer wants their change. Now, I have to be straight with you here, because this is where a lot of internet explanations stop, and the history is messier than that. Not everyone buys this story. Robert Schindler, a marketing professor at Rutgers, has pushed back on it, and his reason is a good one. He found newspaper advertisements from Macy's in 1880 already using prices like 99 cents and $1.99, promoting them as the best bargains on offer. That's very early, arguably before cash registers were widespread enough to explain it, which suggests that at least some retailers were using odd prices to signal a bargain from the very beginning. not to catch thieves. So the honest answer is that we have two origin stories running side by side, and historians can't fully separate them. One is about controlling employees. One is about attracting customers. They may have started independently, in different shops for different reasons, and then merged into one universal habit. What we can say for certain is that by the end of the 1800s, the practice was spreading fast. Montgomery Ward's catalogs in 1899 show goods priced at 9 cents and 99 cents. And by the early 1900s, chain stores like Woolworth had trained an entire country to expect prices ending in 9. And that's really the point. However it started, the habit got locked in long before anybody scientifically understood why it worked on customers. The psychology came second. We adopted the trick first and only later figured out that it was quietly hacking the human brain. So let's talk about what it's actually doing to you, because the mechanism is well documented now, and it's called the left digit effect. Here's how it works. You read numbers from left to right, and your brain, trying to be efficient, anchors hard on the first digit it sees. When you look at 499, the very first thing your mind registers is 4, not 5. 4. And in that split second, before you consciously round anything, the price has been filed away in the $4 bin rather than the $5 bin. The actual difference is 1 cent. The perceived difference is an entire dollar. Your brain took a shortcut, and the retailer built the price specifically to exploit that shortcut. And this isn't a failure of intelligence. It's a feature of how thinking works. Your brain processes an enormous number of decisions every day, and it cannot afford to carefully evaluate every price tag from scratch. So it uses fast rules. Grab the first digit, get an approximate size, move on. That system is brilliant for surviving a world full of information, and it's precisely the system that charm pricing targets. You're not being fooled because you're careless. You're being fooled because the shortcut works almost all the time, and someone designed the price to sit exactly in the narrow gap where it doesn't. What makes this genuinely uncomfortable is that knowing about it barely helps. You can be fully aware of the left digit effect, read about it, explain it to a friend, and still feel that small tug that $4.99 is cheaper than it is. The anchoring happens before your conscious mind gets involved. By the time you're reasoning about the price, the first impression has already been set. This is why the effect is strongest at what you might call the threshold. The moment the left digit is about to change, going from $4.99 to $5 is a 1 cent increase, but it feels like crossing a border. And going from $3.99 to $4.99 is a full dollar increase that somehow doesn't feel as dramatic as that single penny at the boundary. The math is completely lopsided. The feeling is what the retailer is pricing. And there's a second layer on top of the anchoring. After a century of this, prices ending in 9 have picked up a meaning of their own. They've become a signal. When you see $19.99, you don't just underestimate the number. Some part of you reads, "This is a deal, this is a bargain, this price was set aggressively." Whereas a clean, round $20 reads as premium, deliberate, maybe even luxury. Which is exactly why expensive brands often refuse to use 99 endings. A luxury watch isn't $9.99. It's 1,000. The round number is signaling that they're not haggling with you. Retailers are extremely deliberate about this. Different endings get used for different purposes. Some chains use prices ending in 9 for regular items, and different endings, a 7, a 5, a 0 to quietly mark clearance items or final markdowns. A private code that staff can read off the tag. In some categories, 95 performs better than 99. For subscriptions, an oddly specific number like 479 can actually build trust because it looks calculated rather than invented, and the whole thing survives even when the penny itself has stopped mattering. In several countries, the 1 cent coin has been discontinued entirely. Prices get rounded at the till anyway, and yet the 99 endings stay on the shelves, because at this point the penny isn't really doing arithmetic, it's doing psychology. It's a 150-year-old habit that has become its own language, one that both sides of the transaction have learned to read. So here's what that missing penny actually is. It began most likely as a piece of surveillance, a way to force an honest record out of a dishonest clerk. It survived because it turned out to be quietly manipulating a shortcut in the human brain. And it persists today because we all silently agreed to keep pretending that $4.99 is meaningfully less than $5. The next time you're standing in a checkout line and you see that familiar $9.99, you're looking at the residue of a saloon owner's theft problem, layered with a century of research into your own cognitive blind spots. That penny was never about the money. The penny was always about you. If you want to dig deeper into any of this, the research is linked down in the description.